You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jen, a lawyer, no mo, yogi, and human design lover.
And I'm Mik, a marketer, energy healer, and prepper. This is episode 60. So the phrase, open your third eye. How many times have we heard this?
So many.
But how do we know if our third eye is actually open? Or how we can open it if it's closed? What causes it to close? Well, we're going to get into all those questions and more in today's episode.
But before we get into that, we want to shout out our latest patron, Jay, and remind you guys to go to patreon.com/chakras and shotguns to check out the perks that we have available to all of our patrons. So thank you, Jay, for your support.
Yeah, tons of great perks on that site. Check it out, guys, and sign up for one of our levels. All right, let's get into today's breathwork. I'm giving Jen the episode off. I'm going to take this one this time.
Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all this free time?
Well, this is one I was really excited about. So let's get ready for it. I want you guys to sit up nice and straight. Take a couple of deep breaths. And I want you to set an intention. Today's episode is all about the third eye. And so if you have an intention around gaining insight in something, a specific area of your life, maybe career, finances, relationships, just set an intention of gaining some insight in that area. So let's all close our eyes. Take one big breath in through the nose. Hold it. And out through the mouth. And I want you to use your index and your middle finger on your right hand. And I want you to lightly tap the center of your forehead, right where your third eye is located, 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want you to bring your awareness to that space that you just tapped and focusing in only in that area. I want you to visualize a bright purple light right in that space in the center of your forehead. Take in a couple of breaths. Continue to focus on that area. I want you to imagine and visualize that light growing brighter and brighter. And we'll just stay in this space for the next 20 seconds or so. Now I want you to say out loud, my third eye is open and clear. And that's all.
Thanks, Mik. We'll talk about this later in the episode, but I had some tingling sensations in my third eye area, so appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a good, simple exercise that you can do to kind of stimulate that area to start helping you gain some answers. All right, so let's get into the main topic. This isn't our first rodeo when it comes to the third eye chakra. We did an overview back in episode 12, which was almost 2 years ago.
Way back. Way back.
In that episode, we got into how the third eye works, signs and symptoms, maybe that your third eye is blocked. And in this episode, we wanted to take an even deeper dive into what it means to open the third eye. In my healing work, If you guys don't know, I am a Reiki master and a shamanic healer. And I've worked with a lot of folks who have a lot of disharmony and imbalance in their third eye. And so I wanted to spend some time talking more about it.
I have some questions about that.
Okay.
Like, what does that present like? I know sometimes you've given me sessions and you've noted like a lot of heat coming off my third eye. Is that it? Does that mean it's open? Does it mean that I'm receiving a lot? Like, what does an off balance third eye
so
how
it presents when I'm doing my work, I usually can, with my hands, feel a pulsation of energy from each of the main chakras, right? And it's can be strong, it can be weak, and a lot of times if that chakra is out of balance, it feels really weak. Like you can even like feel differences, like maybe their heart chakra is really strong, and as you move up, you feel like a drop off of energy. And so that's typically how I can kind of feel that out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's review some key things about the third eye. The Sanskrit name for the third eye is Ajna. It's located in the center of the forehead. The third eye is connected to the pineal gland, which is fascinating in and of itself. And we talked about that in length in episode 12 as well. But the pineal gland is responsible for your body's production of serotonin and melatonin. So melatonin helps regulate your sleep. You know, some of us are out here on these gummies. Not me. I can sleep anywhere. I can fall asleep right now. But your body naturally also produces melatonin. And the gland in and of itself, you know, we talk about crystals a lot. The gland has calcite microcrystals. So we have crystals inside of our brain, inside our gland that's behind our third eye chakra, which when I found that out, I was like, that can't be real. I thought it was fake news. I thought it was like some hippie has made this shit up and it's not real. Like, I got crystals inside of me, but yes, baby, you do. And calcite is a fascinating crystal in and of itself as well. So that's another trip that we can take another day. But definitely check out episode 12 if you want to know more about how the pineal gland works. The third eye itself is associated with intuition, insight, and wisdom.
Yeah, so one thing that I did not know about when we first talked about this is that there's actually a mention, at least one mention of the third eye in the Bible. One that I learned about in my metaphysical Bible study that I've been going through is Matthew 6:22. So in the King James version of the Bible, it says, "The light of the body is the eye." Singular eye. The light of the body is the eye. "If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." And so like how I interpret that is basically if you're working with that single eye, that's how you can reach the state of enlightenment, your body being of light.
Interesting. Sometimes I'm stunned, but like not really, that some of this made the cut for the Bible, you know?
Well, it's veiled. It's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not plain language. Like you kind of have to do some interpretation there. So that's why I made the cut.
Yeah.
Kind of slipped in.
Well, I guess I'm saying I could have seen somebody being like, the eye. Well, we got two eyes. This must be a typo, you know? Even if it was corrected that way. But then it's supposed to be there. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
There's like the practical approach to the curation of the Bible that I could have seen that getting edited out or changed to where it made more practical sense. And then there's also like the spiritual part of me that's like, that had to be there for a reason. And it kind of circles back to like how you feel about the Word of God, about the Bible, and that it's divine messaging. So yeah, reading that, I was like, that's interesting. The third eye, since we did that episode, a movie came out. I don't know why I said movie like that, but we're going to roll with it. A movie came out on Netflix called Synchronic, and it's got Anthony Mackie in it, aka Black Captain America, and what's his name? Jamie Dornan, 50 Shades of Grey. If you know, you know. But The movie, it's okay.
It's cool.
It was a cool movie.
Yeah, I was entertained for the 2 hours or whatever it was.
I was at home.
Yeah.
It's fine. I didn't pay to see it beyond my subscription. So the movie is about this street drug that hits the streets, and when on it, you can time travel. Now, the problem is that adults could take it, and they were supposed to kind of be like ghosts through time, but teenagers were taking it, and their pineal gland wasn't calcified, because your pineal gland calcifies slowly over time between the ages of 2 and 20, which that's not in the movie. Like, that's real life. So they pulled from that to create this plot line. So basically, these kids were taking this drug and they were getting stuck because they didn't have another drug to get back, because the pineal gland was affecting how they experience time. But the movie's cool. It's on Netflix. It's called Synchronic. You should check it out if you're bored, whatever. But I was really fascinated about that fact about the split with teenagers, youth, and adults, and the calcification of their pineal gland. And when I looked that up, it's like your pineal gland grows until you're age 2, and then it stops growing. And then slowly over time, it becomes more and more calcified. And we'll talk about calcification a little bit later, but it's an interesting concept that when you're calcification, you're thinking harden. We're talking about opening your third eye. Is this why children are more likely to see ghosts and spirits and have this connection and have like these, I always see like these Twitter threads of kids saying like weird stuff and like freaking their parents and their grandparents out or whatever. I think spiritually we'll say like, oh, well, they're closer to not being here than the time that they've spent being here. Like spiritually we'll say that, like that they're closer to the realm between the physical and the spiritual. But is that a scientific explanation for it as well? That their third eye is not hardened, it's more open, and maybe they haven't been conditioned to not see those things. So I thought that was like really, really interesting to me. Let's also tie in human design, because the energy centers of human design also mimic the chakra centers. We talked about those, each of the energy centers specifically in episode 32 of the podcast. And the center that's over the third eye also uses that same Sanskrit name of Ajna. In human design, the Ajna center is the center of conceptualization, and it directs our mental awareness. And if it's connected to your throat, if you can see that on your chart, it directs that mental awareness into the throat center directly below it. So depending on your chart, if it's colored in, your Ajna is what we call defined. And so you're not easily influenced by others. Literally, your mind is set, like my mind's set on this, right? You have a set way of thinking and processing information, and you're always thinking and you're always processing. You enjoy being mentally stimulated, but it also may be hard to turn off your mind to meditate, for example. If your ajna is not colored in, it's either open or undefined, and that means your mind is a little bit more flexible. You're open-minded, but you can also be open to conditioning, specifically on how to think. And I feel like the world is always telling us how to think, and I think these are people who really struggle with that. Maybe you had a parent that told you need to think about this logically step by step, and you have figured out that you like to approach things in a more abstract way. So this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just this experience, this kind of grading experience of people, authority, school, parents telling you think like this, and you're like, why do I have to approach it that way? I approach things a little bit differently. If all of this sounded like Greek to you and you have not listened to our human design episodes, definitely do that. If you would like a one-on-one reading with me and we can go over your chart, check out chakrasandshotguns.com/readings.
Yes. Jenn is a very talented human design reader. Let's jump to things that can block the third eye. So number 1 on this list, stress and negative thoughts. High levels of stress, anxiety, and negative thoughts can create blockages in the third eye. It disrupts the flow of your energy and really just hinders your ability to kind of connect spiritually. We've talked a lot on the show in past episodes about that fight or flight response that can happen. And so when you're super stressed out and your body's pumping out those hormones related to fight or flight, you're not going to be able to access those hormones that are coming out of the pineal gland that we talked about, right? To be able to get you to this place of intuition and moving in flow and being just super like connected from a spiritual standpoint.
Also, overstimulation of the senses, such as excessive exposure to technology and media, can also cause the third eye chakra to become overactive, leading to an imbalance and an eventual closing down. I guess I would think of that as like it's trying to cut through the noise and it's wearing itself out. I actually take this psychic development class at my yoga studio, and it sounds very like Twilight Zone, but really it's breath work, intense breath work for about like 45 minutes. And one of the exercises that we do is called closing of the gates. And you use your hands to put fingers over your eyes, you block your nose, you close your mouth, and then you use your thumbs to press down on your ear flaps. And the instructor is always talking about how we're always constantly taking in like sensory input, right? Like there's always something on, there's always something that's trying to grab our attention, or we're always trying to fill the silence with talking. And so it's this exercise of like kind of shutting all of that down. Yeah, that's an amazing class that usually like has my third eye like busted wide open, you know? And I tell it, bring it back. But that's a cool exercise. I think that exercise speaks directly to like overstimulation, blocking that chakra.
Absolutely. I just watched a video on Instagram from Shaman Durek, and he was talking about how a lot of people, when they first wake up in the morning, they reach for their phone. And that is something that I think contributes to that overstimulation. And so he actually walked through like an exercise you can do. Maybe we'll like link it in the show notes about how to like kind of wake up your body in a better, more healthy way before like reaching for that phone. So just something that I thought was cool.
It's actually really interesting, like thinking about how we're so dependent on our phones. And I was thinking like, how did I wake up before like the phone had access to like the internet and stuff? And I still was probably overstimulated. I actually had my boombox set to play, which was tricky in and of itself, but set to play when my alarm went off to Missy Elliott's Get Your Freak On. And that was probably too much, even then.
Yeah, probably. All right, so going back to the list, another thing that will block the third eye. So trauma and past experiences. So past traumas, negative experiences, and emotional wounds can create blockages in the third eye chakra that can cause it to close down and become blocked.
Society and cultural beliefs, those can also play a role in closing the third eye chakra, particularly if they discourage the exploration of intuition and spiritual awareness. I think sometimes, religion aside, it's all about thinking your way through things. I think sometimes we can poo-poo people who like, oh, I have a gut instinct, and we'll like laugh at them unless it's like a raging success and then it's okay. Yeah. But it's all about thinking your way through things. And like the challenge has been, I think, us as a society moving back into our bodies and our intuition, right?
Last on the list, unhealthy lifestyle habits, poor diet, lack of sleep, excessive alcohol or drug use can create blockages in the third eye chakra. Additionally, so I've been doing some reading more about the pineal gland, which again, we talked about that gland as being connected to the third eye. There is some research that suggests that fluoride can cause some of that calcification that Jim was talking about. So fluoride, which is in our drinking water system, in toothpaste, can cause potentially some calcification of the pineal gland. The research isn't super conclusive, right? It's not saying like there's a direct link, but there's a correlation is how it's written, between fluoride and calcification. A lot of spiritual folks, though, they are, hearing this, they are doing away with everything that has fluoride in order to kind of keep their third eye open. They're using essential oils to kind of try to reverse some of that calcification that happens.
I remember our oldest daughter was on formula for a little while, like as she was like transitioning onto solids. And I just thought that you had to get the baby water. Like, this baby water that they have, like comes in gallon size jugs. And we bought maybe like one or two of those. And then I started doing some research. And in the EU, it's like you do not like in Europe does not play around with that baby water. They were like, give that baby distilled water. And I was like, so what is the point of baby water? Like, it just seemed like the thing to buy, but it has fluoride in it. And so in the US, it's like, I think fluoride is a much more common thing in the US. And then when you start looking into like Europe and like what they allow and what they don't allow in the water supply, it's really fascinating because I feel like Europeans don't play about what they ingest. And we're a little bit more loosey-goosey over here. One other thing I would say about this list is if you notice, and like it popped up in different ones, but like each of those can keep you up at night. Like each of these are like stress, you're not sleeping. Overstimulation, you're not sleeping. Trauma, you got nightmares. Society and culture beliefs, maybe there's some guilt and shame around some things that's keeping you up at night. Unhealthy lifestyle. I cannot sleep if I overindulge. If I drink too much, like I sleep terribly. And so like each of these things are affecting your sleep, which is governed by your pineal gland, which sits behind your third eye chakra. Like, so just kind of take the approach of trying to get the best sleep that you can. And I think that would also help with your third eye.
Just to add to that, there are some that believe that the pineal gland naturally contains DMT. And if you're not familiar with DMT, it's a compound that occurs naturally that is often used for psychedelic purposes. The research on it isn't, again, conclusive. Scientists have found DMT in the brain. They've done bodily fluid samples and have found DMT in those samples, but they haven't specifically linked it to the pineal gland. But if you kind of do a little dot connecting, you can see how, like, theoretically, we could have like this naturally occurring psychedelic in our brain that's a part of the pineal gland, and it helps us kind of tap into these altered states of consciousness or connect more deeply with our intuition. But due to like these environmental factors that cause this calcification, that can be impaired. So again, not proven by science, but something that makes sense to me.
Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah.
Or even how it can help us bridge the gap if you do partake in psychedelics and plant medicine, which we need to do an episode on. Fascinating. Also, like, the body is magical. I feel like we can be very flippant about the body, but it's fascinating.
It's divine. So I think, like, reading through this list, like you said, I think it really points to why I really wanted to speak on this topic. I think as a society, just looking at these things, they're rampant, right? All the things we mentioned. And I'm sure that's why we have a lot of blocked third eyes.
Yeah, you talking about intuition. I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people about, they'll just ask like, how do I develop my intuition? How do I know? How do I know? How do I know? And I'm like, you think a lot, don't you? And they're like, yeah, I think a ton. And I can never come up with the right answer for me. I can logic my way through it, but when I get to the end, it doesn't feel right. And we're constantly getting inputs of like, this is what you should do. You should invest here. You should quit this job. You should jump to another job. You should stay at that job. And you're just kind of like, what is the truth? And developing that, I think, is not only advantageous for your life, but it might be like a cheat code at this point, because if everybody's walking around blocked up, stuffed up. So some other things that you can gain from opening the third eye: increase creativity and imagination. Imagination's also tricky because I think if you start having these altered states of consciousness or seeing things when you're trying to meditate and working on your third eye. I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday and she was like, how do I know I didn't imagine it? And it's also very subtle. It comes with practice of like figuring out when you're in control and when you might be being shown or told or given some things to just know. It's very subtle. Me and you were talking about how it took us some time to kind of figure out, okay, no, that was me. And then like, maybe this wasn't.
Yeah, I have a very, 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 very vivid, active imagination. And so I was really struggling at one point to try to separate imagination and like clairvoyance, right? Trying to get there. So,
and like I said earlier, better decision making abilities and problem solving skills, improved intuition, of course, clarity, insight, heightened senses. That all leads to your clairs, again, which we talked about in episode 12. But clairvoyance is a big one for third eye, like the ability to see something. And it might not necessarily be the future. It might just be a divine message, some guidance, some direction as to where you should go. I think with me, I don't even think I was actively trying to open my third eye. I was just trying to deepen my meditation practice. This was like 2020. And I felt myself entering this like deeper state of meditation. And I think, and that takes time and that takes practice. You're sitting in your meditation, you're just like trying to sit there and trying to get the thoughts to stop and stop thinking through your to-do list. But then there's something that you unlock where it's almost like you go deeper into yourself. I almost like, not slump is the right word, but I feel like I'm just letting go, surrender to the experience. And that's when a lot of stuff comes to me. Downloads. I feel like we never use the word downloads, but it's where you feel like you're getting information. And maybe it's guidance on like what I should do next, what's the next thing, or maybe it's what I should be doing to take better care of myself. Maybe it's just a spirit animal, maybe it's an entity, a deity. It's that type of experience. Maybe it's just colors.
Yeah.
I think that's how it started out for me, was I saw like a purple swirl kind of just moving clockwise, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. That is very familiar for me as well. I think it started out with just kind of shapes and colors moving, and then my meditations were getting deeper and deeper, and I started to see like very clear images. And then it was kind of like spontaneous. Like I would not be in meditation and just get like shown a vision, and it was like, whoa, that was a lot. So yeah.
You might also feel bodily sensations. I feel a lot in my body. So when my third eye is popping, as I would say, I can feel it, almost like feels like a flutter right directly over where my third eye is. And I can feel that in other chakras too, but mostly with my third eye, sometimes my crown. So you might feel that in a meditation, maybe when you're meditating.
So I think that actually brings up a great point. One of the main things that you can actually do to open up your third eye is to meditate. You can use the exercise that we did at the top of the show, you lightly tapping on your third eye, focusing your awareness on that space, maybe imagining the deep indigo purple color of the third eye that's associated with it when you close your eyes. Those are all great tools that can help you in your meditations to open up that third eye.
I somewhat look to my third eye with my eyes closed, if that makes sense. I try not to do it too hard because then your eyes cross and it's kind of painful, but just like softly, that's how I bring my awareness to my third eye. So also a little pro tip. No, I'm not a pro. Candle gazing. I haven't tried this one out yet, but I need to. It's lighting a candle and gazing at the flame for several minutes. And as you gaze at the flame, allowing your mind to become quiet and still and focus your attention on the third eye area. This exercise can help to increase concentration and focus and support the opening of the third eye chakra.
You can also try tapping into your creative impulses. This is something that when I'm doing a lot of healing work, I've seen a lot of people struggle with like finding these creative outlets. And I'm sure there's a correlation there with like third eye blockages and not really expressing yourself creatively. And so find something that you can do. It doesn't have to be shared with the world on Instagram, but you can sketch, you can paint, you can write something creative in your journal, dance, just anything that kind of stimulates some creativity can help to unblock that third eye.
Next, aromatherapy and crystals. Some essential oils that you can diffuse or even rub onto your third eye directly. Frankincense, which I don't know why I didn't think frankincense was like a real thing until it was like later in life where I was just like, oh, this is like a real thing that's like accessible. Like I can pick this up at Whole Foods. And
That was
like,
like
yes.
only in the Bible, like
yes.
the wise men are the only ones that had it.
Yeah, it was like, oh no, this was legit. He got the frankincense. It's like they got this at Whole Foods in the skin and hair aisle, okay? But no, seriously, frankincense, lemon, clary sage. Those are some ones to try. See which ones you like. Frankincense also comes in incense as well. I've seen, frankincense. Wow, real time. Incense is in the word. Okay. So yeah, try that out. One note, if you've never worked with essential oils before about putting them on your skin, some of them can be a little bit harsh. Our skin is our biggest organ, so you want to be careful about that. If I don't know which ones of these can go directly on the skin, and I don't really like to do the guesswork of it anyway. So what I like to do is add some type of carrier oil. So an oil that is okay for the skin. So jojoba, that's jojoba, if you want to write it out. Argan oil, coconut oil. I don't love coconut oil on my skin. It can be drying, but if you do, that's good for you, boo. So those are some good ones to take some of that, add the essential oil to that, and then apply it to your skin. Crystals that you can integrate if you want to focus on opening up your third eye. Amethyst, which is also good for sleep. Surprise. Sodalite. Lapis lazuli. I never know if I'm saying that one right. Lepidolite and labradorite. You can meditate with these. Maybe try out a meditation where you're laying down and balance the crystal directly on your third eye. You can carry them in your pocket, wear them on a bracelet, whatever floats your boat, boo. But just try out different things and see if it has any type of impact.
You can also try some third eye chakra affirmations. So things like, I trust my intuition, or I am open to receiving guidance from the universe are great mantras or affirmations that you can repeat to yourself silently or out loud while focusing on your third eye.
Finally, some yoga poses that you can incorporate. Child's pose. This is a great one for everybody, for most bodies. It's the pose of rest if you're in a yoga class and you need to set it on down. So if you're on your knees, you lean forward with your hands and place your forehead on the ground. If you want to use it to stimulate your third eye chakra, just kind of with your forehead on the ground, move your head from side to side and just massage your third eye. You can move it around in circles. It's also a really good, like if you reach forward a little bit more, it's a really great stretch for like your rib cage and like the sides of your body. Shoulder stand, that is not for the rookies. It's not a hard pose, but if you don't practice yoga and you've never heard of shoulder stand, I would work my way up to it. It can be very hard on the neck. So if you have any type of neck injuries, don't do it. But it can be a good pose to incorporate if you want to work on your third eye. I would definitely suggest looking it up. We'll put it in the show notes. I'm not going to walk you through it on this podcast because I don't want anybody hurting themselves. And y'all ain't about to sue me. Okay? So.
The yogi lawyer over here.
So yeah, open up your third eye chakra. See how it feels. See if it's buzzing.
All right, guys. So hopefully that gets you guys going with opening up your third eye. Before we go, we do want to remind you to sign up for our Patreon. We have lots of amazing perks in there. You get access to exclusive content, breathwork library. We have a prepper checklist that you can download, and you even can get discounts on readings, and Reiki sessions.
And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen.
Namaste.